Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are talking about market research today, who buys what you sell, and a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who might be watching from Facebook or in either of the groups. Hop on over to YouTube and chime in because we can't watch 5 different places at one time. We always have the YouTube comments open. So we are going to be completely dependent on our audience to kind of steer what you want to look at in the contracting data. So with that said, let me kind of backtrack and ask you, in your sort of day-to-day, like if you had to give like a top 3 of all, I mean, there's a lot of government sites, guys. There's a lot of ways that we can collect intel. This is publicly available information, but Natasha, what are your top 3? Like, what are the ones that you're using pretty much every day or on a regular?
Um, USAspending.gov. I like to utilize that to observe prime contractors that are doing what I do and to analyze budgets and who's spending, in regards to what I buy. Um, the next one would be eBuy or GSA. I like to look at people's GSA schedules. It's all public knowledge. So I like to see and do a price to win analysis. I'm not one to just put like a certain amount of money on the top and wish for the best because my time is money.
Oh,
So
wait, you mean you don't just double your price and then
no,
submit that to the government?
God no. If you do everything in the blind, like you're blind bidding, you have less chance of winning your profitability win rate. And I like to assume that my time costs money. So if I'm spending my time on proposals and bidding and doing stuff, I really want to make the best out of my time. So I want to spend time researching and doing that market analysis and make sure that my pricing makes sense, that my competition isn't way slower than I am. And what if I lost based on like a dollar or two? I'd
Would
be
be
really pissed
pissed.
about that. I'd be
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
angry. So that little bit of time is worth everything. The next one, it really depends. I'm very big on finding a good data system that does the analytics for you and saves a lot of time because let's be real, everyone spends so much time searching. My go-to is GovTribe. Um, it has AI search engines. It has the ability to find opportunities that are more within my path. It helps me create pipelines. Um, and then along with that, it helps me find partnerships and really strategically kind of put my competition in one funnel so that I can kind of focus. So I'm not spending so much time going to different sites. So I'd say those are like my 3 favorite right now.
In the primary, and those are my 3. The only other one that I would say that I probably use pretty regularly, and this is when I have a vested interest to find a business that does something specific with a certain set aside, is DSBS.
Yeah.
So that's not one that we are going to dive into the rabbit hole on today. I have plenty of videos on the channel on DSBS, so feel free to go through those. But we are going to spend time on what are the sites that are going to help you fill your pipeline, essentially, because that's what we need. If we're
Yeah.
completely dependent on open opportunities, and there's 20 opportunities this quarter and we've got none in the pipeline for next quarter, what's going to happen when you don't win any of those opportunities? So over time, as you refine your approach and you make a more stringent sort of go, no go analysis or qualification process, the first thing that you're going to want to do is start putting opportunities in your pipeline before they ever hit the streets on SAM. So that's what we're going to
Mhm.
do. And Lydell is joining us in the YouTube chat. He does R&D engineering,
Awesome.
build technology, and prototypes. So I'm just going to type, let me go and share my screen here, Lydell, and I'm going to sort of walk you through from very baseline search and sort of like whittling that down. You did mention engineering, and it's no secret that
It's a huge
we,
industry.
yeah, it's a huge industry and it's
Yeah.
used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So, what our goal is to whittle this down. Lydell, I know you said R&D engineering, build technology, and prototypes. So, let me actually go back because that's an interesting one that I want to see what sort of prototypes even are in our market here. I'm just going to select the most recent 2 fiscal years. And what I'm looking for here, you see your likely suspects, your GD, Raytheon,
Yeah.
Boeing, but what I'm looking for, and this is sort of where we get the description. And remember, guys, the data is only as good as the human who enters it, right? Sometimes there are mistakes, sometimes there's more information than there are others, but
Mhm.
we can kind of use this as a guide. Furthermore, when we want to see who's doing the buying, um, they do provide us these friendly little tabs. Now, I wish this went deeper into the actual procurement office level, but it does not, unfortunately. So we know that National Institute of Health, USAF, and NSF
Yeah, your
are the
top.
top 3 sub-agencies.
Mhm.
What would you do with this
Say
information?
that the other ones aren't important. I mean, let's hover around those
Yeah.
because numbers.
Yeah, because oftentimes it's
But
down here and again, we
it's
could go
still like,
so far into the rabbit hole, tell how many offers were received, and we'll do that in a moment, but sometimes there's lower competition where there's the least amount of spend. So that was a
yeah,
very good point.
yes.
I'll pick one of these guys. Which one which one should we look at further?
Ooh, who's the, well, we know John Hopkins University. Raytheon,
Take a look.
ECS Federal. Let's look
Yeah,
at
I'm
that
not
one.
really familiar with that. Let's take a peek at
Yeah.
this one. We're going to open up this opportunity. All right, Natasha, what do you notice? Like, what do you look for immediately off the bat when you open these guys? I know what my sort of thought process is, but just kind of
Well, I
compare.
immediately know that they're in Fairfax, Virginia. I know where they're located. They're obviously closer to the government, so they have a better relationship. But along with that, when I'm looking at their contract, I want to see what their product and services is. I like to tailor it to the detail. Is it common? Does it match what I do? How much is their spend? Have they spent all the money? Do they still have some room? Can I reach out to them and offer my services as a subcontractor? Um, and then I want to do some research on the modifications because obviously there's valued funding. So they keep funding the contract. So just because there's an estimated amount doesn't mean that's the final amount. You can always get modifications to a contract to increase that value. I'm also, yes, looking at the suborbs. How much is their spend? They've
Subcontractors, guys.
one.
Right
Look at all
here.
of
It's
them.
right here. You can see
You can
exactly
kind of
who they're
reach
doing
out.
business with. Yeah,
Hmm.
here's your leads list, basically. I mean, depending on obviously your competitive analysis. You
Yep.
do want to do your due diligence before just cold reaching out. Hey, I'm a WOSB, DVE, STP. We had that conversation last week. We're not going to go into it again, but make sure that you do your homework and you communicate your value when you reach out. A lot of times, these guys have a process to receive you.
Oh,
So,
on their websites, yes. Look for their
mhm,
supplier diversity program
yes.
and for their small business liaisons.
And contract, if you can't find a supplier diversity program, look for contract manager. Now, this is way more
Mhm.
common with the long-term vehicles. If I'm a contractor on NASA Soup or Vets 2, I have a page on my website by the requirements of my contract
Yes.
to see view. I have to have a supplier diversity program in my business.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
they tend to have a process, but not everybody does. I can say with confidence that most of these guys on this list here, Lydell, will have an area to receive you on their website
Hmm.
based on the massive amount of the contracts that they're getting. So go to Raytheon, go to GD, go to Paraton, look at their website, see what other contracts they have, and start sort of identifying where you might fit into that
Hmm.
and submit your information to them. All right. Now, Brandy, this is going to be sort of a special case. I kind of know a little bit about what Brandy does and where she's at. So I looked back when we first started working together, and I believe I typed in 2 different ways. One was fiber optic, and the other was fiber optic.
Oh, yeah, keywords. Super
Yes.
important. Super important.
And now, for those of you that are in specialty trades like Brandy is, keep in mind that you also have this location filter. It wouldn't make a whole lot of financial sense for someone who's working with a whole bunch of machinery to transport it across the country. So you're able to make the biggest impact in your own local backyard. Things that are places that are accessible for you and your team, where you don't have to pile on travel expenses and lodging on top of the actual work share. So we're going to go Georgia. All right. And then submit. So now let me kind of explain, because this isn't a perfect list yet. This is preliminarily basically all of the contracts in Georgia that had something to do with fiber optic. We don't know yet if that was product sales, installation, and we could take this a little further by,
Or even
getting
the
in.
name fiber. Do we have a
Mhm.
name code that maybe we can dumb it down even further?
Well, I would always recommend, if we're going to filter by code, to do the PSC code, because that does tend to
Oh,
be, we
66
have the products here, but
D80.
Brandy digs the trenches. She's
Yeah,
actually installing. So
I like that.
installation of equipment, electrical and electronic equipment components. We have some architecture and engineering,
Additional clean
but
decent rental.
yeah, we're gonna definitely want to rule that out. So let's keep the
No,
66.
I would say the 6080 as well, and then N059.
All right, so 60, 60, 60, 80. What was that other one? N what?
N0.
N059. And
Oh, it's that
then
one. That might
O
also too, the N099.
059 and 099.
It looks like
Those,
someplace people throw it when they don't know where else to put it.
yeah, I call those throwaway codes.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm just isolating, I'm whittling down just the projects that are relevant. That leaves me with 10. That's a
Yep.
whole lot more of an attainable list.
Yeah.
Directional drilling. Thank you, Brandy. Let's add that in there, actually. Okay, so directional drilling didn't make an effect with the product service codes that we used. So we can kind of run that separately, but we're looking at DoD and DHS. So
Now you
there's
have a focused
definitely
target market. Yep.
mm-hmm, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, Air Force, DLA, and Coast Guard. So there's likely some base work being done. And then when we want to look at how, like, these here are completely attainable for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is work in the local backyard that does not, that's not going to be a contract value that's going to put anyone out of business. These are completely attainable. When we look at who's doing the buying, here's fiber optic expansion project. And I know that you're going to be focusing mostly on the services. So the products um, are less valuable, but that was Department of Navy and it was via a purchase order. So let's take a little closer look at this.
And I think in regards to like almost like a sales initiative and BD kind of component, even if they're buying the products, they still need someone to install them. So we still want to
Service.
reach out. We still want to put
Yeah,
our
and make
best
sure that
foot
they know who you are. Send them that
forward.
capability statement. Hey, I saw that you have a fiber optic expansion project that was awarded last
Mhm.
year. Here's who we are. I know you've been doing this a very long time, Brandy. So lead with that experience and
Yeah,
sort of let your business speak for itself. Some of this can be micro purchase. If something breaks and they need someone with your expertise to go in and fix it, they can pick up the phone and call you. It doesn't
correct.
really have to be a whole hoopla where, it has to go to Sam for something very small, especially in the instance of an emergency.
That
Here,
the
there are
no
no
bid win.
this looks like one of those, actually. Look.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They just, if they have a good enough relationship with you and they know what you do, then yeah, they'll
Sure.
just source it to you,
Now, this happened to be an 8A program participant.
which is good.
Um, mhm.
And tribally owned. So yeah, perfect.
And also, I would repeat, yep, simplified acquisition. I would also repeat this search for you, Brandy, in a slightly different way,
Mm,
because when there's a new construction project, one of the things they're going to need to have installed is the cables running to that building and the digging on the outside, the site prep. Um, so networking with the GCs that are in Georgia, that are winning in Georgia, I should say,
Yeah.
not that they're physically located in Georgia, because sometimes they're in California, right? They might just send their program manager, project manager out to the job site, and that accounts for their 25% of the work. So, it's the team of boots on the ground in that local area that essentially gets the job done.
Yep.
So I would also look up all the 236220 award winners in the state of Georgia and make sure that I get on their team and sort of replicate the teaming relationship that you already have, kind of rinse and repeat with additional primes. That way, the work essentially is coming to you and you're having to do less chasing of the work. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
I would. It's such a smart method, especially when you're getting started. I always say that 30% should be you priming, 70% should you be you subbing. And I know that everyone's like really into the chasing the government and priming and making the most money, but that comes with time, strategy, and a huge thought process, right? Like if you gain that past performance and that experience through being a valued subcontractor, you're literally, as you stated, boots on the ground. You're building a relationship with the main client that eventually will lead to you being a prime. So sometimes subbing is the best way to eventually just being a prime. It's a very good method. So yeah, absolutely.
Works like a charm in IT too. You really get to understand what keeps your customers up at night,
Yeah.
what their pain points are.
Because you're
Um,
there. You're
yeah,
going
you're
through it
right
with
there.
them.
Sometimes
You're
you're sharing
working
an
with the project.
office.
Yeah, like you're working with them, so you get it.
Yeah.
You have insight that sometimes your prime doesn't have because they're not there. They don't have that expertise knowledge that they went and they get from you. They don't have that, closeness with the client that you have.
Hmm.
So that relationship is always a build for a sale.
Absolutely. Now I did this search. I quickly popped in there 236220, which is institutional building construction, institutional. 807 contracts in Georgia where buildings were built. And these are who won the work. Whether that work is still going on would obviously depend on the end date. But if you can see, and to kind of solidify your point earlier, Natasha, just because the end date came and went doesn't mean that the payments have stopped. If the project's
Yeah.
not done yet, it's not done yet. So, you know, again, the data is only as good as he or she who is entering it. Things do change. So, this is our quantitative intel.
Yeah.
Now that we are armed with the who, the how, we need to now boots on the ground, guys. Don't sit around and wait for a solicitation. Get on these teams.
Yep.
Now, you've got some joint ventures in here, very common in construction, especially, when the business have
Right.
maybe complementary socioeconomics, maybe one's large and one's not. There's
Mhm.
various reasons that folks will do a joint venture, but that's kind of like MPP. That's like marriage. So you want to date first a little bit before you pop the question. Um, Let me see if there's anything else in here as far as the map would just show us the state. See if we can break that down. All right, so most of this spending, a big chunk of this spending that we're seeing on this particular report started around the beginning of federal fiscal 2024. So, oh, I'm sorry, that was the end of 2023. That's September 30. So the end, I can see why that happens. Part of that end of the year spend down. Um,
Mhm.
but these projects are more than likely still happening, right?
Yeah.
Because the government wants to use their budget so that they get it in the budget next year. So they'll start the large projects and then those kind of carry on. Rome wasn't built overnight. So do these contractors already have somebody on their team laying that cable? It's possible. It's very possible. But one thing that we know for sure is that that's not going to be the last contract they bid on.
Yeah.
So
And
those
it
of
doesn't
you,
always mean that they're happy with the work that was performed.
right, quality is a big issue. And
Mhm.
if you had an opportunity to ask these primes what their pain points are, I bet you they'll say compliant and
Mhm.
responsible subcontractors. I haven't actually had a conversation with a prime contractor who didn't give those two answers.
I would
Maybe
agree.
there was one or two other ones sprinkled in there, but they always included compliant and responsible subs.
I feel like everyone gets that. Even if you're trying to middleman it, how many times have you reached out for subcontractors that don't have a clue? And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
sitting there and you're like, oh, this is going to be way worse than it's supposed to be. And they're completely non-responsive. I don't know if COVID had anything to do with it. I just feel like people care less after COVID. So it's just been a non-responsive all around, especially timeliness, not timeliness,
Yes.
work schedules, um, staying within budget, response for quotes. I mean, everything. So there are a lot of pain points that primes have now. And if you can be that solution, they will replace their current subcontractor with an amendment very quickly and join you on to the new contract. So definitely worth making sure that they're happy. And if they are, they still know who you are, because the minute they're not, they'll remember you.
Yep, that's true. And even if it's nothing more than to introduce yourself and make sure they know that you exist, even if you're not spending a whole lot of effort, if they don't know that you're there, they'll never buy from you.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
mean,
And I even would go even as far as I kind of do like, all right, so my method of market research is I stalk, right? It's going to
ethical
be live.
cyber
Ethical
stalking. Yeah.
stalking. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
not at your house looking through your window, but I'm, I'm stalking you, right? I'm stalking your business. I'm stalking who's the people that I need to contact, right? I need a little more information. So when I'm going into here, I'm not just going into your contract. Let's click on the recipient name. I'm going on to the recipient name. I am looking at your spend. Like how much has the government spent on you? I can see at the top right hand corner, and I can also see here in the transactions over time. Either way, you can see how much revenue they have made through federal contracts for each year. And I can usually come up with like 2023 was their best year. They kind of hit the mark on that one. So they're doing really, really good. 2024, they need a little work. It's probably going to trickle on over, right? So I want to know who they're winning work with, how much money they've made, what contracts do they currently have. There you go. Awarding agencies. The majority of their money is being made through the DHS and GSA. So definitely have a GSA schedule. And their DHS, Department of Homeland Security, awesome. US Coast Guard and PBS, Public Building Services. So I know who they're making and doing business with. I want to go even further. What are they doing with those individuals, with those agencies? What are they doing? Let's scroll down even further. And then you'll see your NICS code and your PSC code. You're going to see that they're doing commercial and institutional building. They're doing industrial building construction. And then to go into a more granular detail, you can see the construction of office buildings and other utilities. Boom. So they're making money. And even further to that, you can kind of see the country they're focusing most of their revenue in, and they're receiving their revenue in the five major states of New York, Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, with New York being their, their main revenue. Um, so even further from that, I'll take that information, I'll keep track of it. Then I go so far as going onto their website to see if they have a supplier diversity program, if they have anything that I can register my information or upload my capability statement. And even further, I go to their LinkedIn page, I go to their people, and I look for their small business liaisons, for their business development people, for their sales managers, even their project managers if necessary, as a last resort. But ultimately, small business liaisons and business development sales marketing team. Those are the people I want to connect with to follow up. And with, I have, registered on your website. If I have, here's my capability statement. I have noticed, since I did all the research, you have an IDIQ. You have a contract vehicle that does this work. I offer these services. that relate and complement the work that you're currently doing. Should you need a subcontractor at any time, I just want you to be aware that I am completely available to you. I am located in the same place of performance. Here's my capability statement. Here's who I am. And if given the opportunity, can I please schedule a call with you to go over our services and how we can provide value to you?
Usually that's called
Most,
a capability briefing. They'll know
yeah,
what you mean.
they'll know it.
They'll know what you mean. They'll know what you mean.
Ultimately, that's your moment. And it's happened to me many times where, I've had Boeing call me and say, okay, cool. I'm gonna set up a bunch of people in a room to Zoom meet with you, and you're gonna talk about your capabilities. And there you go, creating a PowerPoint slide and being prepared. I usually ask for all the people that are going to be involved in that capability briefing to know what kind of resources.
Quality.
Yeah, so they know what they need. So I can be the solution before they even state the problem. So it's always nice to do the research, and not always ask, though there's always plenty of times where you have to ask, right? You can know it all. But if you can do your homework prior to the interview, you're going to get a thumbs up. They're going to love you. You're going to have a prepared, presentation. You've researched all the information. You aligned with their initiatives and you have the solution to their pain points. If you pretty much did all the work for them, it's a no-brainer. It's only a matter of time before they bring you on. So, and that honestly, that little bit of research is the
Goes a
difference.
long way.
It goes a long way. It's the difference between no win to like 1 million to 5, 10 million. It's just such a big difference. And it didn't take that long. What did we do? This in 30 minutes?
Yeah. And I will point out too something else that I noticed that's relevant to you specifically, Brandy, on here. Um, one might interpret this, and again, we don't have enough data to really confirm or deny. But when
Yeah.
I look at this stands out to me because you're in utilities. They have a little bit of work in that space, but not a whole lot. Could it be that they're not capitalizing there because they lack um, sort of past performance in that area? We don't know yet. Having a meeting
Mhm.
might clear that up. Also, 10 million of that work was in Georgia for what it in your place of performance. I also noticed up here they are other than small. So while they are a minority owned business, they are not a small business. Therefore, at least 23% of their revenues does have to be subcontracted out.
Yep.
Now, we're also talking about the construction industry. Even before Biden put into writing that he wanted to put 13% of all federal spending going to an SDB, the
Mhm.
DBE program was widely used in the construction industry, the DOT DBE program. Brandy, I'm pretty sure we might have to catch up on that, but based on the parameters in my memory of your specific factors, I'm pretty sure that you would qualify for that. That would open you up to more opportunities and allow you access. I got to say, I've had clients just win business just from being in the database.
Yeah.
So if anyone here is listening, you're in specialty trades, your stuff is used in construction, even outside of construction, it matters now.
Yep.
So review the DOT DBE qualifications in your state. And if you qualify, get in. You don't need to pay. It's a quick application. Somebody will try to jam their hand in your pocket for this, I promise, but you don't need to pay. Y'all have any questions? We can talk about this on another free live session. Um, but it's pretty quick and painless.
It is.
Definitely get through that if you can. Any final thoughts, Natasha, on this note? Any final questions from our audience before we wrap up?
I would say that doing the research is so important. I know there's so much more out there than YouTube, because obviously YouTube is not fact
We love
checked.
YouTube. We're here. We're
Yeah,
here.
I love you.
But
Anyone can do it, right? So ultimately, what we're trying to show you here is that the tools and the capability is within your reach. You don't need us to tell you everything. We will guide you, but everything that you need to succeed is free and fully available to you. So
Your
please feel free.
fingertips.
It really is. So if it's just something as simple as you didn't know that USAspending.gov existed, reach out. We'll give you that information. It's out there. It's easy. Play with it. Explore. This could be the difference between you having no sales to having, you know, strategic solutions for yourself and for your business and a very stable income for the next 4 to 5 years with just one contract. So, do the research. It's
Fill that pipeline. Fill that pipeline. I don't
sales.
want to see open opportunities, just open solicitations. Y'all are way too late for that if you're really providing a service and
Yeah.
providing value to a conversation. And the reason I say you're too late, and it's not always true because there's an exception to every rule in this space, but
Mhm.
if the customer doesn't know who you are, and you don't know the customer and you don't know what keeps them up at night, and you're submitting a response that you spent 80
Mhm.
hours on, the likelihood of you winning that are
Yeah, pretty much.
pretty far down there, right? So we're all about working smarter, not harder here. That's why I started this podcast. There's just so much confusion out there. You
Yep.
don't have to bid on everything. Just find who buys what you sell, how they buy what you sell, and start getting boots on the ground, start networking, start reaching out. If they don't know they're there, how are they going to buy from you, essentially?
Yeah.
So put on your sales 101 hat and go sell your stuff, guys. That's it.
Yay.
That's all I got for you today. I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Please be sure to click the notify button so you're notified when we go live every Thursday here on YouTube. Have a great weekend, all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.